Nevada County. It's your friendly neighborhood political correspondent. Here at Nevada County Media, I aim to educate and empower voters by interviewing local political leaders. My guest today is not a local political leader. Instead, he is the executive director at Sierra Harvest, which has been impacted by national politics. I have here today Eli Bacon. Hi, Eli. Thanks for being here.
Hi, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Cool. At the end of January, on the 27th, you had sent an email out to your stakeholders regarding the Office of Management and Budget's January 27th memorandum that issued a temporary pause on all federal assistance programs, and that was followed by a stay. So your email was sent on January 28th, and I was wondering if you might update us on what the situation is now with that.
Yeah, so just for some background, that the original memo that went out was an order to temporarily freeze federal funding for, among other things, grants. And that, as you can imagine, created quite a stir around nonprofits across the country, let alone government agencies and government programs like, state funding and things like that. For Sierra Harvest, we were immediately concerned around one of our particular grants, which was our Beginning Rancher and Farmer grant that is supplied by the USDA. And that was a particular concern because it supplies about 75% of our funding for our Farm Institute. That being said, and pardon me if I mix up the timeline a little bit, but essentially the memo came out. There was a judge who put a stay on the order. As a result, the administration rescinded the memo, but not the order. And so what followed was essentially a judge issuing a restraining order to pause any implementation of that executive order pending legal proceedings. I believe this week the administration is asking that the circuit judge overturn the district judge's order so that the freeze could move forward. And I believe the Trump administration had mentioned something about trying to do that by Friday of this week. That's kind of where we're at this point. We're all in a wait and see approach. All agencies across this county, and I imagine across the country, are scrambling to essentially submit all of the invoices and everything that goes into having a government grant. And for those of you who don't know, the way that it works is if you get a grant, then you are essentially invoicing the government against that grant every month with a list of your expenses and what you've done. And so essentially what you're being asked to do is submit all of those things so that you can be reimbursed in hopes that those funds are distributed before the freeze goes into effect.
Gotcha. That must create a bit of a tense vibe.
It is very tense, to say the least. I think you have a lot of scared people right now around thinking that there are potential furloughs, potentially programs being cut, and certainly, wondering how long the freeze would actually happen. One of the important distinctions is that the order is freezing those funds pending OMB, or the Office of Management and Budget, approving those funds or approving those programs that meet with the current administration's goals. So not all federal funding is cut, not all federal funding is paused, but certain ones are being reviewed. The concern right now is most of the ones that are being reviewed are ones that impact people of diverse backgrounds or low income or underserved communities, which of course are a lot of the programs that this community relies on in order to provide funding for things that we enjoy. So that is at the heart of it, really.
Right. So can you comment a little bit on the budget of Sierra Harvest? Sure. And how much of it is fed by federal funding?
Yeah, so we are fortunate. So I'll take a step back. The administration issued a list of funds it was looking at, one of which I mentioned was our BFRDP grant, which is the Beginning Farmer and Rancher. That is on the list of one of the ones that would be reviewed, therefore paused. We have other grants like our Incubator 2, which helps fund our farm to school programming, which 96% of the students in Western Nevada County benefit from.
My 3 children did, absolutely.
Yep, and provides our garden education and all of those elements that we provide. That was not on the list, the current list of programmatic elements that might be paused pending review. So we're grateful for that, for sure. And there are others, though, that are like the specialty crop block grant that local farmers have received in our community, and that is on the list. So it's kind of hit or miss. Currently, Sierra Harvest has about 46% of its funding supplied by federal or state grants.
Wow, okay. So would the state grants also be affected?
Potentially, if they were fed by federal programs.
Okay. So is there any collaboration right now happening as people try to unravel this, maybe with the Farm Bureau or other agricultural organizations around the community?
Absolutely. We're all trying to talk to each other, all trying to get the latest of information. I mean, certain organizations have people back in Washington trying to hear, the latest and greatest. And we are all essentially trying to work together to see if there are ways to put program elements under alternative funding sources that aren't impacted, and trying to just essentially be creative. We have strong partnerships with the Farm Bureau, with the Resource Conservation District, Resource Conservation Service, certainly the Ag Commission, and those. So we are working all the angles, so to speak. I do know that the Resource Conservation District and the Resource Conservation Service, which are the federal and county level programs that are here that offer protections and services for private landowners, they are being heavily impacted. The Resource Conservation Service, which is the federal arm, is already starting to merge and shut down area chapters of their organizations, just out of the reaction to this new order.
Right. So, so Sierra Harvest is a nonprofit.
We are.
And a lot of these other people, the organizations you're working with are federal and state agencies, maybe county agencies. So are they impacted differently? Do you feel that as a nonprofit you have other options for filling in the gaps or picking up the pieces?
It's an interesting conversation to have, because really I think what's most people think of is, well, then you would just have to go and find other funding sources, as you mentioned. Our other funding sources tends to be private funding or individual donors. And as we can all imagine, if they are also feeling scared, or if they are also feeling like their jobs are threatened, people aren't necessarily thinking about being philanthropic in those conditions. So, that is not necessarily the instinctual response, is to say, oh, well, we'll just go over to this other pot of money, so to speak. We are looking at certainly our county and city resources, and certainly our contract revenue, in order to see if that is somewhere, some other way we can look at. But frankly, they are also impacted. So it is hard question to answer, because we're not really sure where there is going to be an avenue for us. And yet, as you probably know, with nonprofits, we are often the resource for folks when there are no resources. We are often the ones providing the services, and we're expected to do it, frankly, at a fraction of the cost of a for-profit organization. So certainly our friends in, Gold Country Senior Services, who are providing Meals on Wheels, and certainly our organizations who are looking to support farmers and ranchers in the area, and the farm workers who support those folks, right? We have Hospitality House, who are providing all of the services for those folks. We are all being impacted, and yet we are all providing the services that this community relies on.
Yeah. So I have I have 2 questions that are sort of swimming around my brain, and I'm trying to figure out how I should ask them, or which one I should ask first. At its core, the show, this piece that I do. Actually, before I get to that, we'll be right back. Thank you.
Thank you to Stifel Financial, proudly helping individuals pursue financial goals, businesses and organizations raise and protect capital, and communities offer a higher quality of life. To learn more, visit www.stifel.com.
Welcome back. So before we cut to commercial, I wanted to talk a little bit more about, so at its core, this show is about educating and empowering voters. So we elected representatives that obviously, when were making their pitch to us, wanted to advocate for farmers because this is an agriculture-heavy community.
Right.
So I'd like to just, could you talk a little bit about how they have been working with your agency and other agricultural agencies, and about maybe how voters can kind of take notice of that, and maybe how they might notice that they're being affected by this?
Yeah, so I think the real call to action here is definitely being in contact with your congressperson and your state representatives, because those are the folks that are being able to advocate on behalf of these nonprofits in Washington. My understanding, I mean, we've certainly reached out. I have, through the letter that you received, I've encouraged anyone who is motivated and impassioned by this issue to certainly reach out to their congressperson and representative and let them know that they are concerned. I think food is a bipartisan issue, and so we all need to eat, and rural communities are particularly vulnerable. So, certainly Congressman Kiley's office, I think, has gotten a number of phone calls, which is great. He's always been someone who has been able to come up the hill and really see the real impact of what we're trying to do here. So I think that it is really just a matter of making sure that everyone is aware of how important these funds are to this community, regardless of which side of the hill you're on.
Right. Yeah. So how do you have any projections about how this might impact our food?
Yeah, I do. I think that it is, without getting into too much details of the how and why, I would say that what could happen with the removal of these types of funds are a lack of technical support and education and training for future farmers from CR Harvest perspective. Certainly, if other elements are cut, there are programs out there for farm workers. There's certainly a concern around farm workers who are or are not here legally. We are already starting to see the impact of that in the fields, and that farmers are having a hard time securing labor. We are about to go into farming season, and certainly if there is still fear around that, right or wrong, we could absolutely have an impact on our abilities to secure food. And for rural communities like ours, what that leaves us is we are now then reliant upon the larger industrial agriculture providing those things. And so again, it goes back to value systems. And if you like organic food and regenerative ag food, and you like local farmers and you want to support them, part of that is supporting the labor that gets the food onto the plate. So we are seeing already that impact on a small scale. I would predict that if these types of funding crunches continue to happen, we would see that on a larger scale, and that does make us vulnerable from a food system.
Yeah. So I have someone close to me who's been impacted very strongly by this. And so a comment that he made was that he feels that this office has taken a sledgehammer to his program, where it would have been more appropriate, he feels, to have taken a scalpel.
Yep.
So obviously you guys are feeling a sledgehammer, and I'm just wondering. It's only been a couple weeks, but I'm just wondering if you've had any. If anybody's really come up with a way that a scalpel might have been more appropriate, like if you wanted to think about how like people are saying they're trimming the fat,
Right.
I mean, I'm not saying there's fat to be trimmed, but I'm just saying if you were to have seen them redo something that might have saved something, do you have any ideas at this point?
I don't know. I mean, honestly, I think that the scalpel approach is timing more than anything. I think what we are seeing is the impact of the immediacy of the broad brush and how quickly it was to be implemented. We, at the time, I think had about 72 to 4 to 5 days of notice. You'll have to check me on that.
Wow.
72 hours is not a long time to quickly go through your books and try and submit your invoices and try and secure what little money you had prepared to have. And it certainly is too short of a notice in our instance if it's 75% funding a program.
Yeah.
And extra things that we wanted to do with the year to suddenly then revamp and look at our budget and say, well, what do we cut?
Mm-hmm.
I think the scalpel approach would have been, do you give folks a month to come up with a plan, or 2 or 3, and say, yes, these are things we're going to look at. Yes, we are going to phase out funding for these things. And how can we do that responsibly? So, if there was fat, it can be identified over a period of time, and agencies are given notice.
Yeah, that seems prudent and good faith. So tell me, so let's return to Sierra Harvest.
Yeah.
So how can this community support you? How can this community support what you're going through, just to make sure that it doesn't see any disruptions in the services that it has come to value?
Yeah, I thank you for that. It seems trite to just say support your local farmer, but it's true. Certainly signing up for CSAs, going and shopping at the farmers markets, asking restaurants that you frequently, visit to certainly purchase local. We have a unique situation here in Nevada County that our mission is to grow economies of scale for our local farmers. And what that means is we're trying to make sure that the supply and the demand increases, so therefore we can eat more locally, and really try and support those folks that are doing that. One of the events that we have coming up is on March 21st. We have Soup Night. I hope this community will come out for that. It is a community event. It's our 10th annual. It's $20, all you can eat. Kids under
so good.
Kids
Best
under
soup.
12 eat free.
Mm-hmm.
This year we are featuring the new chef from Stonehouse. We're featuring Briar Patch.
Cool.
And we are featuring Heartwood, and they all make excellent soups. So I hope the community comes out from that. Farmers and ranchers eat free. Just call us for a code, because we care, and we want to make sure that there are plenty of those types of opportunities for folks to engage with our local farmers. For Sierra Harvest personally, if you value the programs that we deliver in this community, we certainly could use your direct support at this time, and we appreciate any and all forms of that, whether that's volunteering for our events or certainly donating to our organization. It is the vote of confidence that we need, and and right now, frankly, we could use a little emotional support. So yeah. I think it's really just asking the community to let us know if you care, because we certainly want to be here, and we certainly want to make a difference, and we want to make sure that our community members know that they can eat healthy and nutritious and local food.
And if somebody wants to keep updated on the situation, do you have any recommendations of signing up for your mailing list or
Absolutely.
A certain place?
Yeah, signing up for our e-news. You can do all of that on our website at sierraharvest.org.
Okay.
Is a great place. Certainly, reaching out to our staff. If you know us personally, we're always on the phone, or certainly via email. We will be happy to have a dialogue and talk to you guys. But yeah, sierraharvest.org is the place to go.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you. So I want to get personal here.
Please.
So what is something, Eli, in your career that you're especially proud of?
Oh, geez. I think, honestly, the work that I'm doing with Sierra Harvest is probably the epitome of what I've been working towards in my career. I have been lucky to be a fundraising professional and a marketing professional for a lot of different organizations, but my passion for food is really, it's just, it's probably the magic that happens when you can leverage what you do well with the thing that you're most passionate about.
Yeah.
And getting amazing food in the hands of people and having that transformative experience happen on a large scale is just really, honestly, a dream of mine. So
yeah.
I'm really excited to be here and be in this role and try and get some of the good work done. So
yeah, that's great. Well, I remember when we first met, you had an armful of tomato plants.
Yes.
And it had nothing to do with the job, the situation where I was meeting you, but there were tomato plants there, and you gave me one. And
yes.
It was the best tomato plant. It was the best tomatoes. I think they were Cherokee purple or something.
Yeah.
So thanks for that.
I mean, what is the saying, right? the things you can't buy, money can't buy, homegrown tomatoes.
That's
So
right.
That's
Yep,
right.
they did. Yep, and they were fantastic. So anyway, if you'd like more information about Sierra Harvest, as Eli said, visit sierraharvest.org. And if you have any feedback on this piece, please email me, MaryJane, at ncnpolitics@gmail.com. It has been my privilege to be with you today. And remember, when it comes to politics, if you're not at the table, you might be on the menu. Thank you, Sierra Harvest Director Eli Bacon, and thanks for staying informed, Nevada County. I'll see you soon with another special guest.